so in this presentation, I'm going to share with you, and you're actually going to help me identify what if we could describe our 40-year-old child, 40, and whatever we describe would be 100% accurate, no exaggeration. So we're going to work backwards from there. First, let's identify the end product, what we would love to be able to say, and it be totally true about my daughter, my son, 40 years old. Help me.
Married, kids.
Okay, yeah.
Start with that.
Let's not take that for granted today. Married, kids.
Functioning.
Sorry?
Functioning.
Functioning. Okay, now.
Take it for granted. Moved out of the house.
So I'm going to put the word independent. Is that good?
Yeah.
That's a huge.
Yeah. Contributing to society.
And that's around about 40, so that's about right. The independence, that is. Just joking, so I need to be so honest. What else? Do you want? Sorry? Yeah, Torah observant, okay. Torah observant. What else? A mensch. Okay, I'm running out of paper, that's good. I think it's posted. I'm not sure if this is fancy. If I put it here, the chair might be blocking a bit. Yeah, you can see it? Okay. What else do I want to say? And it'd be totally accurate. They're mensch, observant, married, kids. What else? Happy. Okay, I'm going to put an icon for that one. They're happy. Excellent.
Close to us. You're not living far away.
Okay. I'll put live close. 100%. That's not to be taken for granted today. Sorry?
Maybe what I was going to say falls under that. Staying close.
Oh. You're so geographically close and
emotionally close to their parents.
Okay.
Close to their
okay.
parents.
So
Therapy.
calling every day.
That's really here.
okay, relationship with us. I'll put keep us over aim. Is that
Yeah, keep it over there.
keep it over aim? It's just a abbreviation. What else would we want to be able to say is totally accurate?
They should be content with their life and have meaning in it.
Okay, they've got meaning in their life, and that's what gives them happiness and maybe joy. This will feed that. The happiness is because they've got a meaningful life. Excellent.
Financially secure.
Okay, so financially secure. I'm going to throw in a piece that I would add to this. That when we say financially secure, if you, not you, but if a parent had to choose between their child having an enormous amount of money versus financially principled, responsible, which of the two, if you were to choose, has a lot of money, not very careful with money, but has a lot of it, and not very principled, not very responsible, versus financially responsible. And is the reason because that's just good on its own? Or people who have a lot of money, is it because they just made a lot of money? Or if they're going to determine what will maintain their wealth, is it because of more money coming in all the time? Or is it actually based on financial principles, financial responsibility?
Can it be both?
It can be both. It can be both, but ultimately, if I'm spending, let's say, more than I earn, and I might be living quite a high lifestyle, but I'm still spending more than I money, or the investments are not necessarily what we call them secure or conservative, but daring, and it's daring with money that's not like extra. It's really bread and butter. So that would be irresponsible. So that's where I'm kind of putting one against the other. But yeah, if we can have both, that's great. Have a lot of money and be financially secure and responsible. I mean, we're living in a day, I think you agree, where the idea of buying things that I don't have with money I don't have to impress people I don't necessarily like, it's like this is it's becoming almost literally a lifestyle where if I don't have something, I can figure out a way to afford it without actually having the money for it. There was a time in our parents' or maybe grandparents' generation where if you didn't have the money, you didn't buy it. And if you still wanted it, so you would figure out a way to take on maybe an extra job or cut down on something of less value to free up that money for something of greater value so I can afford it, maybe my child's education or something of greater value. But today, if I can't afford it, I charge it or take out an extra loan or refinance. So this is huge, and this will feed into a lot of other things as well. Anything else you want to add?
Self-being, like self-conscious, in a way that I would like my children to feel good about themselves, you know. That's really connected to what you just said, you know, that trait of character. I would rather be responsible than have a lot of money because it makes me feel like good about myself.
Right.
So confident, yeah, but good about myself that I'm productive, constructive, you know, like.
Yes.
I'm not just having money out of, like, from a
Right.
So,
how would I put it?
You feel capable. You feel good about yourself because you feel capable. You have this self-confidence.
So should we put self-confidence, self-esteem, self-awareness?
Self-esteem, yeah.
Self-esteem. And I'll put confidence there. Anything else you want to add?
They should have nice children too.
I'm sorry?
They should have nice children too.
They should have good children. Okay, excellent. So let's add. So we'll put same for grandchildren. What? G for grand. Okay. So pretty good list. Anything you want to add? Physically healthy, like also based on principles as opposed to whatever is the fad out there. Has some sort of filtering system in their brain that says this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, let me check into this more. Is it really organic? Is there really a correlation between food choices and my physical health? Might add in there decent measurement for sleep, exercise, etc. So should we put physically healthy as well? Okay, anything else you want to add? Pretty good.
Mentally healthy?
Okay, mentally,
Mental welfare.
emotional, well-being or healthy. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive. Anything you want to add? No.
I mean, I feel like it could go on and on.
Okay, we could go on and on and get more detail. But is this fairly comprehensive? We've got term observance and we've covered like the religious part. If you want, you could add contributors to community, giving, generous type of personality, easygoing, because that can help a lot in marriage and raising children, and there's so many spillovers for that. So those would pertain to the arena of midas, perhaps, but so you might want to put midas and put all those as subcategories. So basically what we're establishing is that we all actually know what we would like to be the case for who our child is or will be. So the question now we've got to ask in...
Are we doing it for ourselves?
So you're hitting on this. Really, is parenting really about parenting my kids? Or, I mean, why didn't Hashem just make children grow on trees or out of the ground? I mean, there's some mothers actually might have preferred that. So why is it that it's got to be through husband and wife and build a family, and they're part of a family unit with all the sibling rivalry and everything else that goes with all the dynamic between mom and dad and teenagers? Why not just make a different system where they just grow on trees? No one would have had any questions about it. Clearly, Hashem wants us to be umbilically related to our kids, and I guess pun intended, but He wants us to be invested because it's less about raising our children than it is our children raising us. Because if we're going to look backwards and say, okay, this is a list, it's pretty comprehensive, and we could spend more time getting into more detail and create a mission statement out of it. But the bottom line is, okay, we all know what we're looking for, especially as religious Jews. We want our children to be passionate in their observance of Yiddishkeit, perhaps active members of the community, good role models to their children, etc. There's lots we can add. Now we're going to ask ourselves, if you gave a 0 to 10 scale of value, 0 is the least, 10 is the most, where would you place the need for the Torah, which is supposedly not silent on anything? Where would you place a value on the need for the Torah to give me clarity about raising children, so I can check off as much of this list as possible? What would you, the need for the Torah, for God to give me clarity? He gave me children, He blessed us with children, so where are your instructions? 0 to 10, how important is it to have clarity on that?
Pretty much everything that you grew up with, right?
So you're hitting on the bottom line up front. We're going to get to that very soon. So what's the value? 0 to 10 in the need to have clarity.
10 at 9.
Yeah, so 9, 10 is right at the top. Yeah. So here's the question: where does the Torah give me clarity on parenting? I'll give you a clue. It's not in the Torah Sheba'al Peh. There's plenty there, plenty. But in the Torah Sheba'al itself, where do we see? It's actually, I'm going to call it a 6-point plan for parenting.
With Noah?
Parshas Noah, maybe. I mean, there's more than one place you could get it out of. Abraham, that's a good point.
Everyone.
Okay. Okay, you've got sibling rivalry already with Cain and Hevel, but where would I have an actual plan that is giving me a sequential structure of Sarah was definitely, all these are right answers, I'm not making them wrong. If Hashem is going to give us clarity, do you think He would put it in a parasha, let's say, that I get to once a year? Or is it possible that He would actually make a mitzvah out of this 6-point plan of parenting that I actually recite daily? Maybe even twice daily. If you had to identify which words possibly could be selected as the mission statement for the Jewish people, well, there's more than one answer to this, but which might be the most popular response? Shema Yisrael. So let's look carefully, because the Shema Yisrael on its own, the first line, says everything about who we're declaring Hashem is in our life. Shema Yisrael. So I'm making this declaration. I'm a Jew, so I have to listen to my own. When I make the instruction, Shema, listen. I'm not just talking to whoever else is in shul. I'm also Jewish, so I have to be listening to myself when I make this declaration. What's the declaration? Hashem Elokeinu. Yud Kei Vav Kei, always is, was, will be. Hashem, who exists all the time. Elokeinu. He is our power of all powers. Hashem Echad. He's the only one. So anything that I experience in my life is really only coming from one source. It's really not Hamas, it's my Averis. It's really not anti-Semitism. That's prophesied in many places. First time really in Perches to Lamed in Parshas Kisavai, the most depressing, if I'm allowed to say that, prakim of Chumash, is if I don't keep the Torah, Hashem is going to send us into our second exile, that's Parshas Kisavai, and our enemies will hate us. Our enemies will hate us, but they only have power to hurt me if I'm not observant of Hashem's mitzvahs. So actually I control anti-Semitism. I'm providing weapons through my tongue or my wrong actions. So how do we get onto this? The Shema Yisrael is saying, Hashem, you're the only one. There really are no other powers. Because Elokeinu is our power, Echad, you're the only one. Anything that has power is powered by you. So, if I could live that way, how would I respond to difficulty? I could live this way, and it's not just circumstances. I think I shared with you a rabbi who lost his father just a few weeks before I met him for a Shabbaton. He told me that the biggest nechama he got was someone who visited him during Shiva and said, when a neshama leaves this world and comes upstairs, and we think they left before their time because his father died relatively young, God never says, oops. Like, oh dear, I missed out on that one. There are no accidents. All accidents happen on purpose. And if I'm going to blame this doctor or this hospital or these carers or this circumstance, so I'm completely allowing myself to be decoyed by things that are happening in my life instead of saying, Benjamin, you're inviting me to have an honest, open, direct relationship with you. You're the only one I have to deal with. Okay, so Shema Yisrael is the first words we're taught as an infant. It's supposedly the last words, if we've got a peace of mind and presence. Those are the last words that we part with when we leave this world. Now what comes next? The ahavta. Love me, says the Kodesh Baruch Hu. B'chol levavcha, with all your heart. Lev also means mind, and when it's doubled over, levav, it means thoughts, because it's plural. Love me with all your thoughts. The Gemara said in Nun Dalet in Brachas, but it's in the Mishnah, last Mishnah in Brachas, Perek Tes Mishnah Hey, where it tells us, B'chol levavcha means Mishnei Yitzarecha, with your Yitzhak and Yitzhahara. The Yitzhak are my machshavos tovos, and my Yitzhahara are my machshavos raras. That's a translation in Sforim. Lucas Timran brings this a few times in Torah number 49, but the translation we're used to, unfortunately, is the King James Bible, which is Love Hashem with all your heart, but then it should be B'chol libecha, because then that would be the correct translation. But it says B'chol levavchem means with all your hearts, but you don't only have one heart. So we're not talking about the physical heart, we're talking about the mind, which controls the heart, which we've discussed in detail. So it's really referring to my thoughts. Love Hashem with all your thoughts. The good thoughts and the not good thoughts. When we get a good thought, that's great. When I get a bad thought, that's great. My bad thoughts are my friends. My negative emotions are my friends, because they're telling me what I'm thinking. They're my friends. And when I realize, b'chol levavcha means with all your thoughts, and lo tisna et achicha bilvadecha, don't hate your brother in your thoughts. So when I get hatred in my mind, my heart, it's my friend telling me, this is what I'm thinking. And Hashem says, Lo tisna, please don't go there. Lo titor, don't bear a grudge. These are all thoughts. So now here, says Hashem, B'chol levavcha, B'chol nafshecha, with all your soul. Which Chazal tell us, Rashi brings a few times the word nefesh means rotzen, with all your desire. And the only Chazal that explains this fully, which Rabbi Akiva famously said as he was dying, that he's been practicing, training every morning, every night in the Shema Yisrael, when he says, I'm going to love you with all my nefesh. Afilu notel nafshecha. Even when God takes my soul, I'm not here forever, but when he removes my soul from my body, how will I go? Fighting, crying, I'm too young, I've got much more to do, I haven't finished my job here, please don't think, I've got so much to do until mitzvahs. Or do we go with Shema Yisrael on our lips? You're the only one and you're only good. I love you no matter what. B'chol levavcha, afilu notel nafshecha. So Rabbi Akiva claimed he's been practicing this for, at that time, 80 years. So of course his mind was completely focused on this declaration. I love you, even when you take my soul. And that's why he had the presence of mind to actually say that while he's being tortured. Uv'chol me'odecha. Says Hashem, I want you to love me with all your ma'id. What does ma'id mean? With all your? Action. So ma'id, it translates as everything that I do. In the sense that the word ma'id is the same letter as Adam, because it's referring to all my raw talents that you've given me. B'chol me'odecha. Love me with all your strengths. You're good at art, you're good at music, you're good at writing, you're talented at teaching, you're talented listening. There's so many different professions a person can go into because of that talent. So that's serving Hashem with all your might. Another meaning, it's the same Mishnah, Test Mishnah Hey in Brachas, last Mishnah in Brachas, B'chol me'odecha, b'chol mamonecha, with all your possessions, all your money. How I spend my money is a way to love Hashem, whether it's tzedakah, whether it's tuition, whether it's extra curricular for children after school, helping close gaps for our kids. However we spend our money, where it's to make us feel good about ourselves, how we dress, etc. So that's all included in B'chol me'odecha. Davar acher, the third meaning, all in the same Mishnah. B'chol midah, it's a play on the word me'od. In the two letters, which is mem dalet, which means midah, it's a measure. B'chol midah u'midah, shu ha'odecha. With every measure, God measures out to a person. Be exceedingly grateful. Whether it's obvious blessing, a measure of financial blessing, health, good family, love my job, a great extended family, whatever blessing we've got, love Hashem, b'chol me'odecha, means having being exceedingly grateful. Or whether God's extracting payment from me for mistakes I've made, I should respond with exceeding gratitude. So here we have in the Shema Yisrael how to respond to stuff that happens in my life, outside of my body. How should I be responding inside? What comes next? These messages, Hashem is the only power, love Him in all these different ways, should be al levavecha, on your thoughts. Now comes the 6-point plan of parenting. V'shinantam levanecha. Now, unfortunately, please be with me, I'm not going to quote any of our translations. We've borrowed from a Christian translation. Vishinantam does not actually correctly translate as teach. That's the most popular, and that's where you're going to find every translation. It happens to be, I'm just being honest with you, you can check it out yourself, I'm only interested in Torah sources to define God's mind. I think that's a reasonable, rational assumption, that I would rely on God's words to define what He wants, as opposed to an English translation or any other translation that can't capture the full meaning. Because words in Lashon Kodesh have multiple meanings. So in Mishnah Berurah, the famous Chavetz Chaim, he actually explains in Siman Samach Beis, I think it's Sivkat and Vav, in the subsection 6 of section 62, where he's talking about the mitzvah of saying Kriyat Shema. You are allowed to say Shema in any other language, as long as you understand what you're saying. But he says the reason why the vast majority of our Chachamim, of the later sages, agree that really you should try and say it only in Lashon Kodesh. He says because there's certain words. He didn't say certain. They say there are many words in Lashon Kodesh that when you try to translate them, there's no way you can capture its meaning. And the one example he gives is V'shinatam levanecha. Because there's no word there that says teach. Even in the second paragraph of Shema Yisrael, where it says V'limatim osam, the correct translation there, the grammata there, means to cause them, the student, child, to learn. So you're facilitating learning. V'shinatam comes from the two-letter root. Shem. What does shem mean? Tooth. Shinayim. V'shinantam, if you're going to correctly translate it, there's multiple meanings. One is teeth to your children. What does that mean? Well, when do your kids see your teeth? So in a funny way, it's kind of saying, smile to your children. That's the stipus shot in V'shinantam. The word shinun, Chazal tell us, is a lashon of shinun, means two things. It means repetition, and it also means sharpen. And they're both correct. There's no stira, there's no contradiction between every single imaginable shot that you can take that's in the language. They are not separate shatim. They are all different ingredients of the same recipe called V'shinantam. How do we successfully reach our children? And it starts with the smile. If you think about it, what does the smile say? And you haven't even said anything. What's the smile say? When you're smiling directly at your spouse, directly at your child, what's the smile say?
Love you.
I'm happy that you exist in my life. I'm happy with who you are. And you don't have to be something else yet, and then I love you. No, I love you. I love you now, even in the process. I love you. It's quite fascinating that children are supposedly medically speaking, don't smile till about 6 weeks. For which reason? There's a few reasons they offer.
They can't see it.
Some say that their focus is not so clear, so they can't respond to us smiling. So that's why. What's another possibility? They haven't yet learned to imitate us and mirror what we're saying or doing, because they're picking up every sound, and eventually they're going to actually, within 2 years, they're going to start giving back the sounds that they hear us. Interestingly, what really seems to be the major reason is because the muscles in the face haven't fully developed for the child to have control, so they're not smiling back yet. Which means what? In their mind, are they responding to our smile? Yeah, just because they can't show it on the face, it's not because they're not responding. So they're picking up on our smile immediately. The moment mommy's holding that baby against her chest, the child is aware of the smile. Could be the focus is not there, but this seems to be the most compelling reason why. The point I'm bringing out is that it's all in the words. Vishinantam levanecha means smile to your children. It also means chew to your children. That's the major function of your teeth. Shinayim are teeth, and it's from the word shane, tooth, shani, twice. Vishinantam means repeat to your children, because we're doing this action with our teeth to chew the food. And when we chew the food, what are we doing to the food? We're breaking it down. And when you break food down, what happens to the surface area? It decreases or it increases? It increases. So do you have less or more exposure because of the surface area of the food that's broken down by your vishinantam? Are you getting less or more pleasure because your taste buds are being exposed more and more to the food? So actually, vishinantam levanecha really means chew to your children. And I think I've given this in the previous session, so I'm just repeating it here because it's extremely apropos to this particular presentation. That the only time mommy or wife really knows, not believes, that's not good enough, knows her husband loves her cooking. 2 options. Is it when he says, oh, this is delicious, can I have another helping? Well, he doesn't like to disappoint me, so I'm not 100% sure, but of course I'll give him another helping, but I don't really know. Option number 2, he says, all he does is chew. Oh, the proof of the pudding is in this case, the chewing. Oh, it's when you savor the taste. That on the outside, it's so clear that you love what you're eating. The Shinantam Levanecha is essentially saying, take these 2 huge messages. I'm the only power. It's all about Emunah. And love me in every which way. The way you think, the way you live your life, your desires, and even your money, and the way you respond to difficulty. Now take that and live that in a way that your children can see, oh my gosh, mommy, daddy really loves learning, really loves nothing, really loves being financially responsible, really loves being integral. We can put it on here, but we put it under financial responsibility, integrity in the workplace, honesty in the workplace, honesty with money, honesty with clients, with customers, etc., etc. Oh, Vishinantam, how does mom and dad do their mitzvahs? How do I bench? How do I say Ashayatsa in front of my children? Because essentially, what is our role in raising our kids? We are their best role models. It's true they'll be exposed to other adults, teachers, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and they're all hopefully going to be on a similar page in terms of what they're going to be role modeling, but essentially the real wiring is taking place in all those early formative years that the child is in our home until they're independent, around about 40, and now our kids are getting all this exposure that they need, and even though we know the competition out there is huge, it's really rough, technology, peer pressure, there is so much out there that is really bad for our kids to see or hear. But ultimately, which commercial do you think is going to win? the commercial that they watch on screen hundreds of thousands of times? Or is it possible that if we take our own lives seriously, the amount of times our children see us smiling in the home and in our interaction, interface, and even with all the mistakes I've made till now, I can change my commercial, because I've got the here, I can change me. It's never too late for me to be a more happy parent, a more loving parent, more connecting parent. The Shinantam has all these meanings combined. The Shinantam Lemnecha. Now let's go to the next one. Each one of these deserves a shir on its own. We're going to rush to V'dibarta Bam. Why doesn't it say V'dibarta Lahem? Talk to them. Why is it Dibarta Bam? What does Bam mean?
Inside them.
Inside them. The letter base is a prefix that means inside. So the which is a suffix, so it really means talk inside them. What does that mean?
Show them by your actions.
So I'm showing them by my actions because that's what they're seeing and therefore processing. That's what they're hearing.
Because it's being internalized there.
So I need to speak to them in a way that is enabling them to internalize it. Because the word bam inside them also has another meaning. What's another meaning for V'dibarta Bam? Base has two meanings as a prefix. Your first, second, third graders will tell you. In a way. 10 points for Gryffindor. Excellent. Speak with your children. Now that's interesting. What's the difference between speaking with them versus to them? It's all in the words. It's all in the Shema Yisrael. What's the difference? It's huge.
Conversation versus a lecture.
It's a conversation. And if it's a conversation, what does that mean about the parent's mind when they're including the children in the conversation? Sorry? I respect your mind because God gave you your mind. So I value what's going on inside you. I'm not taking away from structure. It's super important. It's super important. It deserves many presentations on its own because structure always precedes function. The extent to which there's dysfunction, you can always go back to structure. Don't try always fixing the dysfunction because that's usually symptoms of something earlier, and if there's better structure, then the symptoms will fall away. Treating symptoms in medicine has its huge upside because I need to deal with what's in front of me, but what I've really got to do is get to the underlying issue. That's what you do in your area, which is much less, it's actually not invasive at all. So in the same with our children, V'dibarta Bam, you're really entering their world and letting them enter yours by sharing with them what you believe is right and ask them what they think. And then that becomes a conversation. And a conversation, interestingly, if you think about it, the entire Torah is a conversation. The entire Torah, every single aspect of it, is inviting dialogue. I'll give you a very simple proof. The Chumash is written in a way, please don't look at the translations, because the translations are an attempt to make sense out of the psukim. That's very dangerous. Because, please forgive me for speaking this way. The psukim were deliberately written so you can't understand them. Even if you know the simple meaning of each word and string it together and come up with some sort of intelligent sentence, the pasuk, by definition, will still not make sense. It's written to force you to ask questions. Any pasuk, you can quote any pasuk you want. Ahavgarecha kamecha. It's not simple at all. If I have to love you like I love myself, and I hate myself, or God forbid I'm certified suicidal, how much do I have to love you? Only as much as kamecha. It can't mean that. It has to mean that I first love myself. I start to have a decent self-esteem for myself. Do you follow? Any pasuk you want. Keep it up aim. It's not simple. The words don't make sense. Because letter Vav, ask your daughters, they'll agree with you. Vav has two meanings. It can either mean and or. So, kavet et avicha ve'et imecha. Does it mean honor your father or your mother? Or does it mean honor your father and your mother? Now you'll say, look, rationally speaking, it's got to be and. Okay, so let's say Vav means and. You okay with that? So that's in Parshas Yisro, Perek. Last week's Parsha, Mishpatim, oh dear, Perek Chaf, it says, Hamaka es aviv be'es imai, Moshimas. If you hit your father, Vav, mother, then they get the death penalty. Which one is it? Is it and or? Or, if it's and, well, Mum, Dad, to me to get this right, you have to put your heads together so we hit you. Those are relatively silly examples, but almost any pasuk you take, Bereshis bara Elokim is Lashon Yachid or Rabbi. So what the word El means power. Elokim means powers. You hear a slight problem, translating it correctly, that's to force you to ask you a question. Ada told us Noach, you would think, hey, we're talking about the children of Noah, so what should come next? The children of Noah. The next word is Noah. Excuse me, did you get, distracted? You said these are the children of Noah, the generation of Noah, and then the next word is Noah. And then go into this whole profile, Ish Tzadik Tamim Ha'edor Zavis Ha'elokim Yisalach Noah, and then almost like, where was I? Oh yeah, the next pasuk gives you the names of the three children. But you started that in the first pasuk, and then you got distracted. And Rashi picks up on this, is quoting really the Medrash, and points out that's deliberate. So that you learn that the Torah is telling you the first child you give birth to is not your biological child. Ika Toldo Sehem Shatzadikim. My Sintaikim. Oh, it's my character, it's my actions. It's what I make out of my own personality. That no editor does Naya. How did he do that? How did he become who he became? Oh, Ish Tzadik Tamim. He was completely righteous. In a generation that was extremely promiscuous and decadent. And he stood out. Oh, it's all in the words. So it's really about role modeling. And as much as I look into parenting classes, parenting books, as long as I'm not putting the mirror this way as opposed to that way, I'm missing out on why did God give me a pasuk that essentially encapsulates everything about being a Jew. Shema Yisrael, Ve'ahavta. Hashem's the only power. Everything else is distraction. No, it's not my spouse, it's not my mother-in-law, it's not my father-in-law. It's Hashem speaking to me through these people. Do I need help? Probably and possibly. But the first thing I should do is, Rabbi Shalom, if you're sending these people to me, that means you know I can grow here. You want me to blossom where you plant me. Blossom wherever you're planted. That's what God really telling me in this family. I did not choose my parents, I did not choose my siblings. I didn't even choose my kids. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as you all know, the discipline that works for one kid is not necessarily going to work for their twin. Only a minute apart. Doesn't work that way. Two different personalities. So now I need a new set of parenting tools for the other kid and the other kid. And before we know it, Hashem is squeezing us in lots of different ways and pulling us in different directions. And I can either blame my spouse, blame my parents, they messed me up so big time, it's because of them. I'm so confused with my own parenting. But in the meantime, Hashem said, please, 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 figure out how you can really grow from what I'm giving you, because it's really not as much about parenting as about me changing my smile, my words, inviting more conversation, asking more their mind, and then showing I respect and value what you have to say. I still am a parent, so I may still be the one to choose the veto, but I want to hear your mind. And the whole Torah is this way, it works this way. The Torah was written to force your mind to think. It's forcing you to dialogue with God. And for 1,300 years, the Torah, all the missing information that's inside those words, was not written down. And when it was written down, it's written down in the form of the Mishnah. 1,300 years after 3,335 years, from 2,448 years after creation, 1,300 years later, our sages wrote down the Torah Sheba'al Peh that was given at Har Sinai. And when they wrote it down, the Mishnah, it's such cryptic language, it's such a kitzur lashon, it's so terse, you're forced to ask questions. The words don't make sense, there's not enough information here. Well, that's the point. It was so terse that our sages in the next 300 years had to buy all the Gemara, downloading pages and pages of information that's coded inside that short paragraph we call the Mishnah. Oh, and the Gemara, you'd think, oh great, now it's all written down. I don't have to do any thinking. The style of the Gemara is you can almost not go 3 lines without a cross-examination. Why are you using this pasuk and not this pasuk? Why do you bring a proof from this price and not this Mishnah over here? And before you know it, Milcham Teshotah, it's meeting of minds. V'dibarta, talk with them. So instead of me correcting my child in their kriya, read it again. Vayomer. It's not Vayomer. Why do I spend so much money on this? Ooh. Now, that's one way of dealing with it, and my kids go, and is it possible, I'm slightly exaggerating, but is it possible that the stress my kid is experiencing from being corrected, either from mum or dad, or from a tutor, or from a teacher, is it possible that the stress is sending the wrong message to the kid? There's something wrong with you. Like, what is the matter? You're so slow. Can't you get already? How many times? And my kids' own anxiety associated to learning then becomes the reason why they don't believe they can. And then it starts becoming spillover into private tutors, private specialist reader. What happens if we go with Dibarta? Moshe, is it Vayomer or Vayomer? Which one is it? Guess what will happen? Not every time, but at least 6 to 7 out of 10. Guess what he'll do? Make the same mistake or self-correct? Most times it's self-correct. If he doesn't, that's good news. Because now I know I have to revisit or re-give. The segol is an egg, and it's got 3 eggs. Looks like 3 eggs. And I actually bring into class 3 eggs. They're not real ones, they're plastic rubber, but they look really real. And you get these preschoolers, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, get into them. Have these 3 eggs have an sound. What's the first sound in eggs? Oh, very good. And you put that underneath the aleph. Put it underneath the base, under a gimel. Oh, it's a geh. If I put it under dalet, what sound will it make? Oh, dad, very good. Put it under the hey, what sound will it make now? Oh, hey. So asking questions is part of dialogue. Because what's the predicate in the question? If I'm, instead of teaching you, Moshe, this is an for heaven's sake, the pasach is an Do you get it? Okay, now say it again. I'm obviously exaggerating, but the point is, if I'm teaching you and telling you this is how it is, then what's my vote of confidence in your intelligence to have figured it out yourself? Not much. But if I'm asking you, Moshe, is it an or an I value you can figure this out yourself. Oh, so my confidence in your intelligence, 0 to 10, is a 10. My confidence in your intelligence, when I don't ask you a question, I just feed you the answer, is, well, you can't figure this out yourself, so I have to give you the answer. You hear the problem? And in the name of chinuch, what I'm actually doing is reinforcing the problem, because as I correct the child, it's the worst thing I could do. As I correct the child's reading, what's actually happening is the child's brain has to work harder next time. He's not sure, or less, because mom, dad, Rabbi, teacher is going to give me the answer anyway. And I'm doing this in the sake of chinuch. It's not really chinuch. It's really for me to get on with, get it right and move on. Do you follow? V'dibarta bam, talk with them, inside them, get them to be rewiring, to think for themselves. The whole of the Torah is written in such a way that it's constantly engaging our minds. That's why I'm sure we're near Mashiach, because our school has given us even footnotes to the Gemara's translation. So it can't get lower than that in the sense that being more spelled out. So we're in a generation, and it's not denigrating us from art school. We're in a generation where technology is enabling us to be disabled. My mind is not engaged. Whether it's Waze, I use Waze all the time. I depend on it. But I used to. 30 years ago, I used to know the roads so well. The most I had was a map. I think we still get those. You know, there's a map we can get it in the British Museum. I think they have it in some there's a grandmother cartoon sitting next to her grandson, and she she's looking up what is Google, and he's looking up what is a book. So the Torah was all about engaging the mind. Every single chelik of it. Drush, medrash means to extrapolate. That's what the word dash means. Dash is a word in the Malachas of Shabbos. You extrapolate the P from the pod. Now you see the P was there all along. So it doesn't mean interpretation. Drush does not mean interpretation. That's actually the opposite. That's a Christian translation. We're stuck with it. But drush actually means the exact opposite. It is, how do you know that that's what the word means, or that's what the pshat is? You've got to be able to show me it in the words. And then when you extrapolate, oh, it was there all along. Do you follow? Kanani, this is what I'm just doing with the 7th grade today. Kanani is kan ami. Here is poverty. The worst poverty, Chazal tell us, is poverty of the mind. Idol worshippers is the worst poverty of mind. It's the exact opposite of Shema Yisrael. You're not one, there's lots of other gods as well, or completely differently to you. And that is poor thinking. So Kanani actually is an abbreviation of Kan here, Ani is poverty. And we're talking about the worst poverty. Poor thinking. So, now where's the most powerful place to fulfill the Shinanta? Smile, repeat through our actions, and chewing, enjoying being from. That's what the words really mean. Where's the most powerful place to do that? Read the next words. It's right in the words. How you sit in your home. What I will read, what I won't read, what I permit, what I don't permit, what sites we go on, what we don't go on. When we're sitting at the table, what we talk about, what we don't talk about, who will mention, who we don't mention, how we talk about them, how we don't talk about them. It's all taking place inside the home.
So this pasuk is really teaching us the how. How
Yes.
to teach our kids this and this. But how do we get to the list? That the three.
So, excellent question. What this list is actually providing
the outcome of
is my check-off list of what I need to be promoting in the way I live, so that my children. If you ask yourself, you can ask yourselves, who was the one teacher that comes up in your mind that had the most influence on you and the best memory you have of that teacher? And you think of that person and then ask the following: is it they made that deepest impression on you because of the amount of information they taught you? Or was it because they connected to you the best, believed in you, trusted in your intelligence, gave you another chance and another chance? You will find in inevitably, it's always the role model of an adult in our child's world that had the most impression because of their connection to us through their role model. Is this making sense? So this list here is actually my list of knowing up front, oh, I want my kids to have kibbutz avim. So what are they going to see in my kibbutz avim? To my children, to my parents? And that's something actually I just chose at random, but Chazal actually tell us, mentioned many times in Yerushalmi, in Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph, that the mitzvah kibbutz avim, badut u'menusa, it's checked and tested. That how I treat my parents is going to boomerang back on me, one way or another. I mean, there's things that I am shocked sometimes, that sometimes one of my kids would say something and they say, but I never said that to my father, ever, never. And then when I think deeply, it's true, I never said it with those words, but that I had done it in a different message, in a different way. And it blew my mind when I realized that I had done much worse in that sense than my own kid was giving me. So this is called Baduk U'Menusa.
But some people don't have parents around, or don't have parents, period. So
Excellent question.
they don't have the opportunity to show their own children.
That's true. So then I'm going to have their parents being out on the Chabera will be huge, but telling stories about who my parents were and the reverence I have in my voice. And I'll give you another example. It's mentioned in Svarim that the Ikka Kibbutz Avim, the main mitzvah of Kibbutz Avim, is Achrin Nisasam after they pass away. That the things I will do for their merit Or let's say even take on, I'm going to change a certain midah. Let's say, I don't know, it could be not talking in shul, for example. I'm just throwing that out. And I let my kids know, I'm taking this on as a chut to my father, whose Yorkshire's coming around. And your kid may never, not your kid, but my child may have never met the grandparent. But it doesn't matter because they're seeing my reverence in that sense. But that's really what's taking place in the Shema Yisrael. And it's so pivotal to our lives. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave a separate mitzvah that instead of waiting every year to get to that pasuk, and I hope I'm paying attention when the Baal Kai was reading that pasuk, he gave it for me to recite every single day. How we live in our home, and the word shevet is a play on words because it has a double meaning. It can also refer to the rod of discipline. Shivtacha means you're sitting, how you relax, what you do in your home. But it also refers to discipline. The Sharbit coming up soon in Megillah Esther, when Hashverosh holds out the scepter. A scepter is not used for and getting your abatim when they want to behave. A scepter is an icon of authority. So, and that's interesting. Once you know that, then you understand the pasuk in Shlomo Melech. Shiftoi, soina espanoi. If you hold back the rod, then you hate your child. Now, if it was talking about hitting, because it's really the wrong translation, it should be a scepter, but we're not talking about a scepter that you walk around in your house with, we're talking about the icon of authority that we represent in our child's world. So holding back authority by not giving them boundaries, what's acceptable language, what's not, what music we listen to, what music we won't listen to, etc., that is going to lead to a point where, Chas v'shalom, I end up hating my child because they have no boundaries in their own world. And the proof that it's talking about the icon of authority is the rest of the verse, which says that if you love your kid, then shicharoi musa. Shichar from Lashon Shachris, you'll start Musa. I'm not going to translate it in the typical way, but Musa actually means discipline. Start the discipline early in their years. When they're 2, 3 years old, 3 years old, start teaching them how to get dressed. I know that sounds crazy. Show them how to tie their shoes and do it as many times as it takes until they can do it on their own. This is where we keep your socks. This is where you keep your vest, your nightie. This is where you keep your blouse, etc. And then we help them get dressed until they can do it all by themselves. This is how you fold your clothes before you go to bed at night. This is how you make your bed in the morning. Now some will say, no, that's what my nan is paid for. Okay, but then I have to pay the price of not having that opportunity to help my kid become independent in that area. Do you follow? So it really is, it's all in the word. The shivtacha is a play on the word. Shevet means sit, but it also is referring to my authority. My authority does come, and I can get away with making mistakes. If my kid picks up, I sincerely care and I love, you've got much more margin for mistakes. We're going to all make mistakes, tons. I can't turn the clock back, but Hashem will give me a second chance. They say never, Rabbi Berowine says, don't ever bother punishing your kids, because one day they'll be parents. Meaning they'll have kids that they have to deal with. It's, I think it was pure human reflection on reality whatsoever. So let's finish off the Shema Yisrael because it's really all there. Where are we role modeling? Well, mostly in the home, but wait, also wherever we go outside the home. What we'll listen to in the car, what we don't listen to in the car. When we go on vacation, how we design the vacation so that it is with the least number of, if you want to call them, obstacles that my kid will be exposed to. That's also uvelech dechamadera. My children are seeing how I live outside, how we talk to a non-Jewish cashier with disdain or with respect in front of my children. How I treat other people, Jewish, not Jewish, doesn't really make a difference. is a product of Uvelech Derech in front of my children, because it's all talking about the Shinantam. Where do I repeat God's messages of how much I love Him? And the answer is, in who I am and how I am, in my home and outside my home. And there's only two places I ever live, in my home and outside my home. But whenever it's in exposure to my children, that is the learning opportunity. You can call it a teaching opportunity, but it's really not about teaching. It's all about them learning from me. And when I make a mistake, not if, when I make a mistake and I apologize to the child, what does that teach?
To apologize. They also decide.
Yeah. I think of, sometimes I've heard, and this is my personal opinion, I've heard from people who would say, never argue in front of the children, only in closed doors. So I think that might be theoretically correct, but in practice it doesn't always work out that way. What I think is more important is to be honest that I'm not always on the same page, and if I can't control myself in the moment and I say a not kind word, then what really will matter the most for my kid is that in front of my child, I apologize to my wife in front of the kid. So that they know, hey, shalom is not agreeing on everything. Actually, the word shalom comes from the word shalem. Shalem means it's complete. Before it's complete, it means there are separate parts. Oh, so shalom, and this is what Rav Nachman of Breslev brings it in L'Kutei Moharan and Torah Pei. He says shalom, Ika shalom, hem hischapush shnei chafeichem. It's the combining of two opposites. I'm dafka not the same, and we still coexist. And coexisting doesn't mean we agree on everything, it means we can disagree, but it's how we disagree, and how we apologize afterwards in front of the kids. The kids say, you know what, I don't have to be, I'm not going to say names, I know of a family that at the hespedim of the mother, it was said, she had, I won't give any clues, she had many sons. They were all giving hespedim, and the husband, also is quite a well-known person, never do any of the sons ever remember their mother raising their voice. One of them said that the first time their sister went to sleep away at another home, she came back traumatized because she'd never seen parents argue before. And it was such a shake, she was so shaken up. Now, I think that's an exceptional role modeling for a child, but I'm willing to dare the following question. Which might prepare a kid better for the real world? Having never seen two people argue or raise a voice, which is exceptional and awesome, or is it possible that if they did sometimes argue and apologize in front of the child, that might give them more tools for dealing with differences later on in their teenage, young adolescence, and then dating and marriage and raising their children? I'm just throwing that out as a book because it's so unusual. I'm not Hasron saying it's something not to be admired, it's extraordinary. But there's something that's much more real, so to speak, about I'm human. And the Torah says I am. It's a pasuk in Perek Zayin in Koheles, Ein tzadik ba'aretz she'aseh tov v'lo yecheta. There's no such thing as a human being who's only righteous on this planet Earth and never makes a mistake. It doesn't happen that way. I make mistakes. Okay, so how do I deal with that? It's important.
Also, it was Aaron, right? It was a Rodeh Shalom.
Yes.
He was always peaceful, but he knew how to interact with people and
Yes.
compromise.
Yes. And he was okay with the differences. He wasn't judgmental. That's extraordinary. He was an extraordinary human being in that sense. I've just gone over by 3 minutes, so I'm just going to come to a close. When we lie down, when we rise up. How we go to bed at night. It's 9:45, you still haven't done your homework yet! You don't do your pajamas! My life doesn't get till 10 p.m. Now there's no one here who can relate to any of this. Some of you have friends who know what I'm talking about. How do we retire at night? How do we get the kids to sleep? With the smile, with the Shema Yisrael, with the story about Tzaddikim or members of the family, grandparent who survived the Holocaust or who's a role model in different ways. How we go to sleep at night. Oh, where's Daddy? He's gone to Ma'ariv. Oh, where's Daddy? He's gone to a shiur. Where's Mommy? She's going for a convention to help Hatzalah, whatever. So when children are exposed to every night, how does mom and dad use their time at night? How do they get us sleep? Is it really babysitting on a tablet all over hours? How do I spend those evenings with my children? I know in my brother's house they forbid any devices in the kitchen. And at every single breakfast, lunch, supper that they will be eating, no devices, because this is time for us to actually interface. Actually, with each other. No FaceTime, no other options, because all of those social media is in reality anti-social media. It's really training the mind to disconnect from people face to face in real time. And then I end up texting instead and emailing instead of talking directly to the person. And I lose out all the benefits. How we get to bed at night. How I fall when I lie down. How long do I stay there? How do we get up from adversity? How do I get up in the morning? How do my kids see me? How do I start my day? Where's my coffee? How do I start my day? I'm not saying this right in front of my kids, but I'm just giving as a dogma. How do we say, how do we say if we're saying it, in fact, I'm not saying you have to, but if we're eating breakfast, how do we start our day in front of our children? It's all in the words. How do we get up from adversity in front of our kids? How do we get up from a health setback, a financial setback? Do I go into blaming, complaining? I'll never get my father. This is going back maybe about 50 years ago. It must have been 48 years ago. I was 16 years old. And I'll never forget, my father had been, he'd been owed a lot of money on a movie that he had re-voiced. It's called dubbing. And they owed him $64,000 or pounds, I don't remember. It was a lot of money 48 years ago. And my father turned to me, he said, I just finished this whole case with that company because they very cleverly filed for bankruptcy and then changed the name and continued. So my father told me in the year or so that it took him to get back some of the money, he said, had he known up front how much anguish and sleepless nights and agmas nefesh he would experience from chasing what was owed, he would have just let go completely. And that was a huge lesson to me at 16. And I saw it on my father. He was sharing, maybe he wasn't intending to teach me something, but it really hit me. And I have to be honest, it was preparation without me knowing for a loss which was much bigger than that quite a few years ago. But I was able to take it in a completely different way because of what I remember my father in a swivel chair at his desk in our house, turned around in his study and told me this. And it was just, he meant it, and I saw that, I'm so glad I know that. Why should I give any of my life away to get money back, even though it's owed? And he wasn't talking about, let's say, from a Torah Emunah perspective per se, but with an Emunah perspective, it should be a lot easier for me to say, Rabbi Shalom, help me. Should I go after this legally? Should I drop it? If I go after it, can I delegate it to lawyers and sleep at night? And if it comes out, I get the money back, good. And if not, I'm not thinking about it, except when I have to be on the phone, but I don't. And if it's going to suck me into, and then I haven't got a mind for my family, for myself, it's not worth it. Say goodbye. How do we get up when things go wrong in front of our children? Is what we are preparing them for. We didn't put it on here, but resilience. Whoa! Do we want our kids to have resilience? And resilience has a lot of different ingredients. One of them is how to get up fast, sooner in recovery, so to speak, than stay down there undefeated. So, in the merit of knowing that Hashem is not silent on anything, and he went out of his way to put in the Shema Yisrael, the 6-point plan of parenting, is less about parenting strategies as it is about parenting myself, so that my kid sees a better me and responds to a different me. That's how we change our kids. Thank you for your patience. Any questions, comments, criticism? Yeah.
My favorite line from last time when you said parenting your kids is really like you're finally raising yourself.
Right.
You're raising your kids. I really stood out.
Thank
Is
you.
that a question of that? Is that possible? That's a question.
Yeah, a little louder,
About
sorry.
when you model,